Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Mosport for the next round of the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship in 2025. Just 3 rounds away now from the end of our regular season and towards the World Finals qualifying event in the middle of November. And a week later, of course, the Radical Sim Racing World Finals for 2025. This is round number 8 from Mosport. Myself, Ian O'Leary, and Ron Mounds taking you through the action once again here on this Sunday night. Good to be back alongside you, Ron. We had a little warm-up, if you like, on Friday with the 2100 GMT broadcasted split race in the Radical Esports Cup. I think it was one of those circuits where, you can definitely break the slipstream if you are quick enough, but it's not also one of those circuits that's too difficult to overtake on. It should be a fairly balanced circuit for these cars to go racing on.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic word that you raised there, Ewan, in reference to this track here at CTMP. It's got a lot of balance. You've got those tight, twisty, and technical sections that really give these racers a bit of a challenge to deal with throughout this race that lies ahead, but you do have that massively long back straightaway that gives it just enough of a slipstream game where you can really get some moves done. Just one more race from what has been an amazing schedule. We got it all kicked off and rolling all the way back on March the 9th at the Nordschleife. Since then, we've gone to Road America, Road Atlanta, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve up there in Montreal, Interlagos, Watkins Glen. Sebring, the host of the last race of the season about 1 month ago, and looking at the final 2 tracks that we have to look forward to after tonight's race here at Mosport. Belle Isle on the streets of Detroit and Mid-Ohio to bring this season to a close on November the 2nd. Been a great season up to this point. We've had some pretty good races, and that race at Sebring after a really good official race that Friday, that race at Sebring a month ago was really something.
Yeah, we'll see the highlights of that in a moment. Just before we get to that, though, we'll remind you what the prize is this season for everybody. The Drivers' Champion will get a 12 months free iRacing subscription, free entry into the 2026 season, and the qualification into the World Finals this year, which all of the top 7 will have. P2 will also get the free entry next season, 3rd to 7th with the qualification to that World Finals. 8th to 14th qualify for the last chance the week before the World Finals, with the teams champions receiving a track in iRacing per driver and free entry next season, along with the vice champions who also receive free entry to the 2026 season as well. So far, who's going to be winning those? Well, in the pro standings, Aidan Young is leading the way. His gap now 26 points over Ryan Odo, who is in 2nd position, and he gained a lot of those last week, or last round, I should say, at Sebring. John Bodeford got a lot closer last time out to Ryan Odo, with 3rd now ahead of Alberto Diaz. Graham Sanders running at the top 5. Lucas Vieira has been here for most of the season as well, seeing 6th. Diego Zuccarelli is the last driver inside that top 7, but has only been at 1 of the last 3 rounds, so has certainly lost a few points in the last few moments. David Unger, Racing Fazui, and Cameron Martineau round out the top 10. In the AM standings, it's very, very close indeed. Jose Gonzalez and John Benlid are tied on points, with only 10 points back for Jared Dunkovic at the moment. 10 points, I can't read. 10 points between those 3, I should say. Gonzalez, Benlid and Dunkovic. Jared Gregory is a little bit further back, although there's not a big gap there from him to those places outside of the qualification places. Colby Buck, Joe Jacklin and Adrian Fernandez are all inside of that. Charles Kresic, Cedric Oyon and Robert Neville, who's a bit further away, are just on the outside looking in to that top 7. Saltpet Precision Racing are leading pretty comfortably in the pro team standings. That was accentuated by last round at Sebring. They're leading by 130 now. And at Lima Racing are leading by nearly 100 over Flying Lion Racing, also partly down to the Sebring round. No drop rounds, of course, in the team standings, which makes every round very, very important, including for these final 3 rounds we've got in the United States, or indeed North America, I should say. This one's in Canada. Let's have a look at the highlights then, shall we, at the previous round at Sebring. Under the darkness as it was, and this was how it all began, with the field fanning out, 3 and even 4 wide in the background, a sweeping lead and a sweeping run right round the outside, in towards the first corner for Ryan Odo to take the lead, but it wouldn't last too long, as going on to lap 3 in towards turn number 1, Aidan Young would take the lead down the inside. Nicely done from him on the inside line there. This was the battle for 3rd place in the AM class that really started early on. This is Robert Neville, Joel Jacklin and Adrian Fernandez all fighting over it, and 3rd in the AM class was very much the fiercest fight out of all of them, actually. that we saw over the course of the Sebring race. It would continue on here, although Robert Neville would start to get a bit of a gap by this stage. This was Joel Jacklin trying to re-overtake on the way down in towards Cunningham Corner. Around the outside for Joel Jacklin, and through he went back up into 4th place, setting his sights on that 3rd place. This was overall 3rd place. Alberto Diaz firing down the inside of John Butterfur, and that was a pretty easy pass actually on the inside line that time round into Sunset Bend. This was the first round of pit stops, and Aidan Young managed to get in front of Ryan Odo through that pit stop phase, or they stay in front I should say. The two of them running close together throughout the first half of this race, and it would just continue on and on and on. They would be clear of Diaz by just about 3 seconds, and that would continue to extend as well. Diaz and Butterfield were never quite likely to catch those two out front. Robert Neville and Adrian Fernandez would continue on their fight in the midfield as the top 3 positions in the AM class got further and further away. And then came the big moment of this race. Aidan Young pitting to respond to Ryan Odo's stop, which was 1 lap earlier, and unfortunately Ryan Odo disconnecting, which meant we never got to see that rejoin, and indeed the great battle that was going to ensue between the two of them. James Pransnick, meantime, got up into 3rd place in the AM class, and what a fight it was as well, with himself, Gonzalez and Fernandez as well. Adrian Fernandez got through on this occasion just inside 9 minutes to go through Cunningham Corner up into 3rd. Pransnick would have another look down the outside of Jose Gonzalez, and he wouldn't be able to get through on that occasion. This was side by side between Fernandez and Gonzalez as well, in towards turn number 1. But on that occasion, again, Fernandez would keep the place onto the podium. 7.5 minutes to go at this stage of the race. And it would all be settled down here on the way towards the Bishop Corner in the end. Fernandez got through on the inside. Gonzalez trailing in second, locks up into the chicane. And that also creates a gap back to Fernandez, I should say, who could never get back into 3rd. But it was Aidan Young who took the victory at Sebring, flashing the lights over the line. The gap of the line was only 3.7 seconds, but it felt a lot more, or 3.9, felt a lot more comfortable than that, I've got to say, live, as Jack Dunkovic came over the line in 4th place. He would win the AM class fairly comfortably there as well. As you mentioned, Ron, we had a brilliant broadcasted Radical Esports Cup race at Sebring. Unfortunately, the building up that we had and the outcome of that race, unfortunately, was a bit underwhelming, really. Aidan Young and Ryan Odo were fighting all throughout the race, and unfortunately, we never got to see that that race finale that was building up so nicely there.
Yeah, it was really looking like it was going to be a dogfight between the two racers that we fully expect at this point in time, and still expect as we head off into the 8th round of the championship to be the ones contending for the Pro Class title here in the 2025 Radical Americas Championship. Young and Odo, up to this point of the season, combined for 5 wins. They have been the top of the top thus far in the pro category, and looking to be the similar sort of deal here in this qualifying session as Aidan Young, currently our top qualifier. Lucas Vieira, Ryan Odo's teammate and your reigning 2024 Radical Americas champion in the pro category, currently set to join Young on the front row. Vieira was not present for that Sebring race, which is part of the reason why the gap has ballooned out as much as it has, with Team ERC dropping down in the pro team standings as we head off into this round. But Vieira's back, and I feel bad saying this. He's a very nice guy and put together a fantastic season in 2024. 2025 hasn't really been the case. This is the first time, frankly, thus far this season that I think I've seen that same sort of spark out of Lucas Vieira that I saw last calendar year.
And, this is going to be a very, very different race, I feel, to what we saw on Friday, where it was a little bit quiet, I've got to say, at the front of the field. As I mentioned earlier, it was actually quite easy. Well, not easy, but it was very much possible to break away, unlike what we've seen through some of the previous weeks, and indeed at Sebring as well. Just wonder whether that's going to be the case here today as well, because even Dunkovic, the AM pole sitter, is within 3/10 of pole, and that surely is a sign that this is going to be a race that stays very, very close together for a very long time. But let's see if it does as we have a look at the starting grid, ready for an hour's racing here in the Radical SimRacing Americas Championship. It's Aidan Young who will start on the front, 14 thousandths of a second in front of Lucas Vieira, and 15 thousandths ahead of Team ERC teammate Ryan Odo. It's Alberto Diaz in 4th place, with John Butterfield and Graham Sanders then sharing an all-Saltpeck Precision Racing row 3. Jack Dunkovic, as I mentioned, is within 3/10 of pole there on the AM pole position, with Diego Zuccarelli alongside. Then it's all AMs to the bottom. Jose Gonzalez and John Benelid rounding out the top 10. James Franznik and Charles Kresic then on row 6, a second off of pole. Robert Neville and J.R. Gregory share row 7, ahead of Gregory Castillo and Cedric Ohayon, with Joel Jacklin rounding out the field 1.7 seconds behind. It's a 17-car field, but perfectly put together here, and I think it's going to provide some very, very good racing for us here tonight. 1 hour's racing, as always, in this series. 2 pit stops expected. The pit stop time's always a big discussion point. These races always so tactical.
Yeah, the strategy is always such a huge part of these races. Race in and race out, I was really going to see week in and week out, but race in and race out, these races have been decided by those pit stops. Drivers mastering that pit call, others maybe missing the mark a little bit. There's so much that goes into acing this strategy, and every single other track we go to has its own little quirks and features in terms of what you can do when it comes to the strategy. Here at CTMP, gotta have to worry about the fuel a little bit more with how short of a lap we're expecting all throughout today, with lap times firmly in the 1-minute teens compared to last week at Sebring when they were a little bit on the higher end. You've got a different sort of dynamic. You can see varied strategies up and down this field, others going for some much different strategy calls than others throughout this field. I gotta wonder what sort of strategy trickery these racers are going to be throwing at each other all throughout this race that lies ahead.
31 degrees Celsius on the circuit at the moment. That's high 80s, by the way, in terms of Fahrenheit, mid to high 80s on the circuit. Just past 1:30 in the afternoon in the end of September, so temperature shouldn't increase too much higher than that. It's an hour's race then here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park as we get underway in round 8 of the Radical SimRacing Americas Championship. We are underway in that incredibly close grid, bearing down towards turn 1 very quickly. Aidan Young trying to hold on to the lead and does, with the 2 teammates side by side behind. How are they going to sort that out as they come in towards turn 2? A sweeping round the outside is going to settle that one through the downhill left-hander. It's a good start for Aidan Young after not particularly getting the best launch.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that was not a great jump for him off the line. It looked like he got caught napping at the lights or just had a little bit too much wheel spin as he got that car rolling, but he still holds on to the race lead. Ryan Odo jumping in front of his teammate of Lucas Vieira. Those 2 teammates battled for the championship in the pro category last year. They're now teammates, are hooked up with the same team, and they're trying to not only get a team championship, but extend the opportunity for Ryan Odo to get involved in that championship battle once again between himself and Aidan Young. Speaking of a battle between those 2, we may have it down the stretch.
Let's see at the end of the straight for the first time. Bit of defence from Vieira on Botafour, but not too much really. They're all in the slipstream all the way down. The whole field covered by less than 6 seconds, which shows the likelihood that this race is going to stay together for quite some time. The reason why it might be a little bit different is that it's going to be firstly a different set of names up towards the front from what we saw on Friday. But also they seem so even more evenly matched actually than what we saw on Friday, which is a little bit unusual for this series, but especially those top 5 pros, they're going to surely be all in contention here, and it's going to be a real job to distance any of them.
Yeah, and you look through the talent in that pro category, many a talented racer in that class, and they prove race in and race out that they know how to drive these cars better than most. And some of the racers that you see here in the Americas Championship, a bit less than the European Championship, also covered here on RaceSpotTV, you see a lot of them running in the official races that we broadcast here as well. Don't see that too much in the Americas Championship, and one of those racers who appears in those official races quite a lot is Jared Dunkovic, who's currently holding on to that AM lead, slotted in P6. So Dunkovic proving that official seat time can work wonders.
Odo deciding that now is not the time to fight, but Botafour wants to. He's on the outside line of Lucas Vieira, but can't go all the way around there. Botafour has to tuck back into line. Obaldo Diaz will get a bit closer as a result. Robert Neville has been off at the end of the back straight by the looks of things. He hasn't had a big crash, but he's certainly dropped to 17th. And the back 4 actually on this field are all disconnected from the rest of the field, which is not a great sign for them, it must be said. They want to stay in the slipstream around this circuit. As Botafour now getting the pressure on from Obaldo Diaz, so from looking for 3rd at the end of the straight, he's now on the defensive.
Yeah, it shows you how quickly these races can change on you. You've got one moment where it feels like, okay, you know what, I'm running good. I can try and go for a lunge, go for a dive. Then you fast forward in one lap time, and you're going to be feeling a whole lot of pressure. They nearly came to blows as they had their way off through Mosport. As we take a look at a moment involving Gregory Castillo in that number 12 car, a half spin as he headed his way through the first turn, hit that curb on the inside, maybe a little bit of contact with a car up in front, but either way, that's going to cost him a big time. But we now run on board with Ubaldo Diaz. I thought he was going to go for a lunge on Bodefer. He thought better of it, though. Diaz, who grabbed his first and so far only win of this season, all the way back in round number 2 of Road America back in March, looking to return to victory lane. It's been, I wouldn't necessarily say a disappointing season for Diaz, but compared to what we saw in the first couple of rounds, I was expecting a little bit more of a fiery spark to come out of that 108 car. There's been his fair share of bad luck, don't get me wrong, but to have one win up to this point, I think is probably itching for win number 2.
Yeah, you know, the previous round was his first podium since that last win as well, which I think is going to be even more sort of disappointing for him. And, you know, he'll want to prove that he can get a podium when there's a more numerous pro field. In fact, it was the oh, and he's off now. He's off just as we're talking about it through Moss corner. Djokovic nearly followed him there, off into the grass, and so he will be okay, I think, to hold on to the place, although he hasn't got very good momentum at all. Yeah, I mean, it's not been the greatest mid part of the season, but if he can just start to go on the up curve again, and start to find some form again before the end of this season, then it's coming at the right time. Certainly the end of the season, of course, is where the World Finals is, and that's where everybody wants to be in form.
Yeah, so as we look ahead to the end of the season calendar, the end of the championship coming up on November the 2nd, which, I mean, granted, it's not too terribly far down the line, especially compared to when we started this season way back in March. But it's still a decent amount of time. But once we have that season finale, it'll only be another couple of weeks before we look ahead at those Radical World Finals. It was the European side of things in 2024 that was able to get the upper hand over the Americas squad. I remember Lucas Vieira wasn't able to attend. I think Ryan Odo had some connection issues throughout that as well. Actually, on the subject of Odo, as we look at his car from the back of Aiden Young, your race leader still in that WSR esports machine, I had a quick little chat. I say quick little chat. I think it was like an hour and a half long with myself, Aiden Young, and Ryan Odo after the last round of the championship at Sebring. And Odo kind of let everybody know that, hey, that wasn't an internet issue that I had. My PC just completely overheated, which I can't necessarily say that I haven't experienced that myself, as Graham Sanders involved in a battle with himself and Diego Zuccarelli. Nice to see Zuccarelli out there on the racetrack in the number 26 machine, and he's going to hold on to P7 as he heads his way out of the final turn. Sanders with a bit of a slide coming out of the turn. He's got to look for it down the inside into turn number 1 and through into P7. He's going to go. That's a nice move from Sanders in the 100 car.
Very nice move indeed, and he's got to make it as well. That's on another pro driver, but the time he might have lost might well have put paid to his efforts, really. Further out front, Jared Dunkovic now 1.2 seconds further ahead here, which might just be a little bit too far. There goes Zuccarelli wide as well. Here goes Jose Gonzalez through into 8th position. That's not a good passage for Zuccarelli. Unfortunately, he drops to 9th place. The pro drivers were all in the top 8 earlier, by the way, in qualifying, with Dunkovic qualifying 7th. He's moved up one. Zuccarelli, who's going backwards here, is now down in 9th, and John Bennett's not that far behind. Zuccarelli will want to regain that place immediately here on the back of Gonzalez, who's got some sizable slipstream from Graham Sanders as well. Is that going to allow Zuccarelli to stay there with him? It looks like it is. And that's going to be a bit of a problem now for Zuccarelli, who might well find himself a bit stuck in 9th place.
You know, what we're seeing right now, holding on this camera shot of Diego Zuccarelli involved in that battle with himself, Jose Gonzalez, and Graham Sanders, shows you how much the interclass dynamic can really shake up these races here in the Radical Americas Championship. There is no difference between the pro competitors' cars and the AM competitors' cars, all the exact same machine, all the exact same speed, and this series runs fixed setups as well, so there's no sort of change when it comes to that. The only thing that decides these cars and makes them different from one another is a paint scheme and a driver. So whenever you have these battles towards the top end of the AM category and the back end of the pro class, you get that interclass dynamic going on, and you see AM racers battling with pros, as that was Gregory Castillo's car battling with the wall coming out of turn number 1, the exact same part of the racetrack that he lost it at earlier on, but instead of losing it on the inside curb, he lost it on the outside curb on corner exit. That's a huge hit for him into the wall. He's one lap down, a very rough start for the driver of the number 12 car. But just to wrap up on the point that I was raising, for Jose Gonzalez running P2 in that AM category, it's not a straightforward fight between himself and Jared Dunkovich. Sure, it may be 1.7 seconds, but he's got a pro competitor between him and his class rival.
That was a pretty hard hit, by the way, for Gregory Castillo. It's now a lap down, unfortunately, in this race already. Just less than 10 minutes gone of the 60. And Zayden Young, who is leading the way ahead of Ryan Odo by only 3/10 of a second. It's those two again. They have been just hammering it between the two of them so far this season. They had a streak, and it came to an end last round at Sebring, and they had a streak of 3 in a row races where they one finished exactly one position behind the other on each of the 3 occasions. Odo finishing ahead twice and Young ahead once, but they were absolutely locked together 3 races in a row. Odo's disconnecting the previous one, putting paid to that, but now he's there again. They're 2 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, but they're fighting again, and that was definitely clear from Odo. I'm not coming through just for the moment, so don't worry about me. There goes Alberto Diaz, and he does get through on John Butterfield, so now he is up to 4th place.
And, you know, I raised this a little bit earlier on in this race, talking about Aiden Young and Ryan Odo, and the conversation that I had with both of them after the last round of the championship at Sebring. For context, folks, I spent 10 years in karts, and that was a big part of my childhood. I didn't race at a top level at all, but I had competitors, I had people that I was racing with, and it gave me a feeling for how that sort of dynamic is. When you're on the racetrack, your rivals, your competitors, you're trying to beat one another, but then when you're off the track, they're buddies. That's the same sort of thing that I got. It put me back into my karting days. I haven't been in a kart since 2023. I got out of it to become a loudmouth on the internet, which I think I'm doing kind of all right now. But when I looked at those two and the dynamic that they had, you know, on the racetrack, they're battling for a championship. There's stuff on the line. But outside of that, these two have an immense amount of respect for each other. They are fantastic racers in these cars. Ryan Odo, that young American, he nearly ended up winning the championship in the pro category last year. He only lost out by a decent amount. It came down to the last race of that season. And bearing in mind, folks, the season was a little bit longer than we have now, and with some more races thrown in the midst as Graham Sanders makes a call to come down pit lane. Just want to say, Ryan Odo and Aiden Young, 2 very, very talented racers behind the wheel in the sim and in these SR10s. Young making his series debut here in 2025. Odo already with that years of experience. Just 2 very good race car drivers with a very good mindset, and you see them battling week in and week out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see. It's these kind of long-term battles, long-term rivalries that really do make a championship like this one so exciting, and it's what they're providing for us at the moment. Graham Sanders, is coming to pit lane, 15.5 seconds in for him, so make a mental note of that one, as he comes out about 10 seconds behind the next car, certainly a long way behind traffic, which will be good for him. Here comes Alberto Diaz. There's a lot of waiting out front, but not back here. Diaz goes to outside, and that's a squeeze with Vieira, who just holds his ground on the inside, but Diaz, in any case, goes inside at turn 9, and he gets 3rd position. So Alberto Diaz moves on to the podium positions, a position he will be desperate to get, but there's no patience back here, while there is certainly in the front 2.
Yeah, as we get a little bit farther along in both this race and this season here in the Radical Americas Championship, you're going to start to see that level of aggression begin to get wound up. These racers going to apply some more pressure. They want to be a bit more antsy to get these moves done, try and capitalize on every single opportunity. And here in a race at CTMP, I mean, we look at this track compared to Sebring for the last round of this championship. That's a track that has a whole lot of heavy braking zones, but a whole lot of flat-out blast as well. So you have a whole lot of overtaking opportunities thrown into the mix. This track, I feel like, has more spots to trip up these racers than there are to overtake one another. You got this back straightaway, which is a good spot, don't get me wrong, but you look at the spots that catch out these racers. Frankly, all 10 turns around here can be a bit of a pain in the butt for these competitors, as Lucas Vieira proved it in turn number 5, got a bad exit onto that Mario Andretti straightaway, and nearly just lost out on P4 to John Bodefer as they headed their way off into the final series of turns. And you can see Vieira once again missing the apex through the final turns. That number 16 car struggling a little bit as John Bodefer all over the back of him.
Yeah, really close in here with Spotify again, but oh, it is. Somebody comes through out of the pit lane now. I think that's Joe Jacklin. He's just gone a lap down after pitting there. James Franzik also pits as well. I do see most of the pit stops happening in the first third of the race, so look out for that in the next 5 minutes or so. There may be a lap indeed where all of the pro guys especially come in together at this circuit as they come down the hill here. Vieira, ever since being overtaken by Diaz, is only going backwards. John Bodefer putting the pressure on, and by the end of this straight he might be in 4th place.
Oh, as you can see, another wiggle going on there from Lucas Vieira. That number 16 car looks to be evil at the present moment. Let's see, is he chopped liver heading down this back straightaway? Survey says he probably will. John Bodefer looks on the high side of him. That's a moment from Joel Jacklin. Bang into the inside pit wall. He's going to go, and through into P4 is going to go John Bodefer. As we looked at that drama with Jacklin, Bodefer bring his own action with a move to get that job done. Zane Young coming down pit lane.
Well, it's an early stop then, trying to break up the slipstream he was giving to Ryan Odo. He was happy to do it for a little while, but not too long. Might have just been waiting until he could get a moment in clear air, and he might just have that now, but let's see how long he decides to come into the pit lane for. As Zuccarelli, Benelid and JR Gregory all follow him. Go past 10 seconds here for Aiden Young. He starts to rev a little bit. Here we go. 15 seconds, I predict, for Young. And it is indeed 15.1. Someone's got a black flag. We'll see who that's for. But Zuccarelli's time is going past 15 seconds, and it is him. So Zuccarelli was one of the lower pro drivers. He will be the last of the pro drivers now.
So now that we are firmly nestled into this pit window, what we thought this race was going to be like, it's just going to get turned on its head. I love this series. I love what they've been able to do in terms of changing the format. Last year in 2024, they had 2 distinct races. It was a 15-minute long sprint race and then a 45-minute long feature. Even though they just combined the 2 races together, you got those pit stops to worry about. You got 2 of them, in fact, and it is just such a good factor added in as the top 5 all coming down pit lane in unison. Ryan Odo leading them as a Pied Piper down in the pits. Let's see if any more drivers decide to make that call as well.
Yeah, 8 drivers hadn't come in yet, and they will all do that now. So, because remember that there was a 15-second stop earlier from Aiden Young, and mark that against Ryan Odo, who's going longer than that. 16.1. Where's the rejoin going to be here? Where's Young? He's going to pop through the bottom of his screen surely, and there he goes. Odo was very quick, clearly, on the in-lap and indeed on the exit here, because despite the longer stop, Ryan Odo leads this race here at Mosport with 17 minutes gone. They're still together, but they've reversed their positions, and Ryan Odo leads.
Yeah, so Odo going to get that advantage. He's going to now be the one punching that hole in the air and towing Aiden Young along. I wonder if Aiden Young is just going to utilize this opportunity to enjoy the slipstream, maybe get a little bit of fuel saving done. This is one of those racetracks where you do have that long back flat out blast, but I feel like being in the coattails of a car right in front may actually hurt you more than anything else. You're going to be using up the tires in those SR10s. These cars are tough. The tires on them are super tough as well. So all throughout this race, they're not gonna have to worry about swapping tires unless you crash. Then I think you have some bigger issues on your hands, frankly. As Jean Bodefer, Ubaldo Diaz, and Lucas Vieira have their own battle at the bottom of the screen. Who's going to win out in all of that is going to be Vieira, Bodefer, and Diaz remaining in that line of tow. But no, the tires in these SR10s, super tough. So it's not going to be a matter of changing tires. So if you're Aiden Young running in the coattails of Ryan Odo, you're going to have a bit of dirty air to worry about through the medium to high speed corners around this track. You're probably going to burn them up a little bit quicker, and there's no point of putting on tires unless they're absolutely shredded down to the canvas. So if you have slightly worse tires come time for the end of this race, you may be done for. This is probably one of the only tracks from this season calendar that we do genuinely have to worry about tire management.
Absolutely. Can absolutely rip tires apart this venue, and indeed drivers. Though we've not seen too many mistakes through Moss Corner yet. I think we've only seen Diaz go slightly wide through there, and even that didn't really disadvantage him too much, to be honest. He was just fine to continue on as he was. And Diaz is now at the back of this group again with Vieira and Butterford after the overtakes he made previously. That's been rendered pretty much worthless now. Odo still leads this race ahead of Aiden Young as the pit stops complete themselves. So we'll see what these guys decide to do again. Are we going to see a sort of Sebring style race, hopefully without the disconnection at the end? But is it going to be a Sebring style race in the sense that this middle stint is going to be full of not any overtaking and just a lot of fuel saving?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that he raised here, and it could very well turn into that. You know, we mentioned right before he grabbed the green flag in this race how important the pit strategy is, whether it be a track here like CTMP, whether it be at the Nordschleife for the opening round of the championship, or any other track between then and now. The strategy is always huge. You can make or break your race, and in some cases, with how short of a season calendar this is, I mean, we only have 10 races from the entirety of this championship, so not a whole lot of opportunities to gain or lose some points. So if you mess up that strategy, it can not only affect your race, it could very well affect your season as well. So the strategy in these races, got those 2 pit stops. It is so key to set yourself up as well as you possibly can. There's only so much that you can do down in the pit lane itself. What can make or break your race is what you do out there on the racetrack. And as much as getting some moves done and keeping your car clean is certainly important, maybe doing a little bit of fuel saving can help out your case big time.
Well, exactly. That's why sometimes it's the only downside that I can really think of with this sort of fuel strategy, the way that it's been designed to work in this series. And I think it's absolutely fascinating having 2 different pit stops, 3 different stints with different pit stop times all the way through, so many different ways to navigate through the race. The one downside, the one drawback that has been consistent throughout the season, and it's been the case in European racing as well, is that the middle stage of the race is maybe just a little bit quieter than the beginning and end, which is a bit of a shame. I'm hoping that this group is going to put a sort of question mark over that and make it a little bit different, because Diaz here will, or certainly in the first stint, showed that he wanted to go past. Is that going to be the case here as well, or is he going to sit behind again? Young certainly is. I think that could stay the same for quite some time. But what about Diaz? He is going to go for this, Diaz. Where is he going to be forced to? Outside? Yep, it will be on John Butterfoot. It'll be inside for the second part, and he does go through. So looks like this follow the leader is definitely going to be broken up by Diaz, who's got a point to prove here.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, Ubaldo Diaz hasn't had the greatest season up to this point. He's been good, but there's been a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? I see missed opportunities is a little bit harsh, I would say, but there's been a little left to be desired from Ubaldo Diaz's season up to this point. I think he wants to return to the podium, wants to return to victory lane in that 108 machine. If he can get the job done here at CTMP, that would be rather good. If he wants a good shot at a podium, he only has to get one more move done, and that is on Lucas Vieira. Vieira in that number 16 car last season en route to the championship in the Radical Americas Championship in the Pro Pro category. He mainly just used his mark of being a very consistent driver. Wasn't the flashiest, wasn't the most flamboyant, didn't go for the most outrageous moves. It was just consistently good. But Diaz going to be the flashy one here around the outside into turn number 8. They're going to go side by side into 9, and that will be Ubaldo Diaz doing exactly what he did to John Bodefer one lap before to jump his way up now into the final podium spot. Well done, Diaz.
Well, I think the key now is going to be whether he can get away or not, because it's all well and good leading the group around, but are you just going to be towing them, giving them a slipstream all the way around? I mean, if Bodefer then tries to follow him through here and attacks Vieira in the next few moments, then Ubaldo Diaz is certainly going to be in the ascendancy and having that chance to run away. But it's, you know, there's little point making these overtakes if he's just going to bring them along for the ride for the next 20 minutes or so. So we'll see what happens here, but Bodefer might have a big role to play with that as he challenges Vieira.
See, now in some situations kind of similar to this, I would be a bit hesitant to kind of say, oh yeah, these racers are doing one thing or doing another. I remember years ago, I say years ago, this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point. I've got hold on from that point. As John Bodefer got to try and take a run on Lucas Vieira, heading down the Mario Andretti straightaway into turn number 8. He's going to go, and he clears them before they even think about dropping the anchors down in there. Vieira saying, you know what, I'm good. I'm gonna let you two go out in front. Have fun, have your own little battle. I'm going to be here in P5 enjoying the draft and getting a good field number. But no, I remember commentating a GT3 league many, many moons ago, and the two top drivers in that series were both teammates, and they would be battling. Oh, boy, howdy. That was John Bodefer nearly losing it, coming out of turn number 1, trying to prevent me from sharing the story, so I'll wrap it up briefly. The two teammates would always battle, and I was like, oh, here we go. This could be dicey. And then you would ride on board with the racers and see their perspective, and they would literally talk about just battling to make it exciting for the broadcast. So if it were teammates battling, then I would be like, you know what, I want to hear the tapes. I want to hear what the discussion is going on. None of these drivers in this battle for the final podium spot are teammates. There's just about nothing that ties them all together. John Bodefer, he's lucky that he's still holding on to P4, Franklin. He's lucky that he still has a clean race car after that moment.
Yeah, isn't that exactly what Gregory Castillo did? Or was it somebody else a bit further down? Certainly one of the drivers a bit further
that was
back in the
Castillo.
class. Yeah, I thought so. Just dipped a wheel on the grass and couldn't save it. Just made pretty hard contact with the wall on the right-hand side. The bigger problem for Bodefer would have been, compared to Castillo, is that this is not a pit stop window. It's not a point in the race you can pit and make it to the end, I don't believe, with 35 minutes remaining. So it's very much a big save there. John Bodefer did a very good job. Vieira didn't lose too much time with Bodefer there as he got past, but I have a feeling that Vieira just wants to take the slipstream now, Bodefer, and let him do the work here. But has that gap already increased enough to allow Ubaldo Diaz in front? I mean, the gap's approaching a second, and you just wonder whether that might be too big now. Bodefer's got a big couple of laps here to try and get back in the slipstream again of that third-placed runner.
Yeah, in that small couple of moments, in that small little battling, Diaz just driving off into the sunset. This is one of those racetracks where if you get involved in a battle, you are going to slow yourself down as if you won't believe. I can't even say it's like you're dragging a big parachute behind you. It is like you're dragging an anchor through asphalt. This is a racetrack where if you go side by side, especially off into these final turns, you're always going to have a compromised run. Let's say you're on the inside through turn number 8. You have to take a much shallower line, and you're going to have to be easy on corner exit. Otherwise, you're just going to drift off into the side of the car on the outside of you, and that's all going to come down to naught as we look at these racers. Speaking of side-by-side battling into 8, that's James Franstick and John Bentlid involved in the battle. Bentlid, one of the top-running AM competitors here in this series, actually got an opportunity to race a real-life radical car through Lima Racing after some performances here, and he gets a rear end at coming out of the turn. The Canadian in that number 8 car gets that move done to jump his way up into 9th, but no, wrapping up the point that I was raising about the final few turns. If you're going side by side through there, you are always going to have a compromised run, whether or not you're compromising your run through 8 into 9, through 9 into 10. Doesn't really matter what the case is. You're always going to be in for a world of hurt, as Bodefer, I think, gave himself a world of hurt coming at turn number 5.
Definitely made a mistake there. I mean, whether it was on the way in or are on the way out. I'm not entirely sure, but it's Moss Corner again. I haven't really talked about it so far tonight because actually everybody's done a very good job of dealing with it, but it's by far the most difficult corner on the circuit in my opinion. Braking while turning, uphill and down. This is at the moment. Oh, he's sliding already, and again it's another big and good save actually from Butterford to prevent him from going all the way around. It's actually the on-power slide there which actually creates the gap that could have been enough to break the slipstream, but not quite enough. Yeah, he gets away with it in one sense, Butterford, but he loses a place and loses a fair amount of time in another. Diaz now comfortably third, Vieira back to fourth again.
And you know, I think the biggest killer in that moment was the outside curb coming through turn number 5. It's technically just marked off as one corner. You kind of have to drive through it like a hairpin, even though there's 2 distinct bends in the road. But the other curb on the outside of it, as you head your way off through there, diamonding off that section of the track, you see him hit that curb, get a little bit loose, get a little bit wiggly, and that's right when the car starts to snap around. These SR10s, the aero sensitivity and the weight sensitivity, so massive, so important. It may be a sports car, but you kind of have to treat the curbs in this as you would in an open wheel car. You can occasionally say hi to the curbs. It's like a relationship with a neighbor that you don't really speak too much. You can say hi, ask them how their kids and the wife is doing, but outside of that, you don't really have too much of a conversation with them. With the curbs in these cars, you basically touch base with them from time to time, but you don't want to get overly friendly. Otherwise, something like that is going to happen like it just happened with Robert Neville. Oh, as he spins it yet again, trying to get that car spun back around in the right direction. Neville, oh, and he nearly hit the wall in the process of all that as well. But no, these SR10s, even if you're going in a straight line, you hit that curb, it'll mess up the aero grip, either with the front splitter or the diffuser on the back of these cars, or the weight transfer is going to get all sorts of out of whack, and you're going to just loop it around like a top. We've already seen that a lot throughout this race, whether it be in turn 1 or turn 5, and have a feeling in the second half of this race we're probably going to see a decent amount more of it.
Yeah, we certainly will. You can see the difference as well in sort of a pro driver versus an AM. We saw the way Butterford's made those couple of pretty big saves, quick reaction from him, even when he was recovering from this wide moment through Moss Corner. See the difference with an AM driver like Robert Neville there, having to spin, even just getting back going again after that off track and slightly wide moment through Moss Corner as well. It's it's just showing, isn't it, the difference in ability from the pro drivers to the AMs, but that's exactly what this series is for, exactly what to expect. Ronaldo still leads here ahead of Aidan Young. He's actually just got a second for the first time. I wonder whether Young has made a mistake now down at Moss Corner, because that's exactly where they were when the gap went over a second for the first time. But look at that. Is that a decisive gap for Ryan Odo?
I think it's a good gap for Ryan Odo to have. I don't think it'll really help him too much. If Aidan Young is getting those insane fuel numbers, kind of similar to what we saw at Sebring for the last round of the championship, where Ryan Odo was just staying firmly in the coattails. Aidan Young was staying firmly in the coattails of Ryan Odo, just allowing him to punch that hole in the air and getting the terrific fuel saving as a result. I think the one thing that is helping Odo in this situation, it is a bit of a cushion, so that does help his cause a little bit, but Aidan Young is pretty much right in that window between still getting a little bit of draft assistance from that car farther up the road and falling out of it. I think he's now slowly but surely making his way back up to it. About 1.2 seconds, I would probably say, if I had to give it an exact number, it'd probably be 1.15. Seconds the gap is between being in the draft and not really being in the draft at all. If you can break through that window, you'll be able to see that gap close up. For instance, Aidan Young was about 0.8 of a second, 0.5 of a second off of the back of Ryan Odo. That gap is now going down to about 0.6 of a second. May not be the biggest close-up rate that we usually see in these SR10s, which are absolute draft monsters, but you can still tell that he's getting a bit of draft assistance. Meanwhile, anything higher than 1.2 seconds, and that gap would either completely flatline or would maybe actually grow a little bit, depending on who got the better exit out of the turn. So Young needs to just keep his nose to the grindstone, get that gap to be a little bit closer, and get out of the danger zone in terms of potentially losing the draft.
Yeah, it's such an important thing in these SR10s. It's something we focus in on. Just focusing on something else for a moment. I just wanted to talk about the AM Championship. Considering the running order at the moment, Jack Dunkovic currently leading the way by a comfortable advantage over Jose Gonzalez, who's got a comfortable advantage behind him as well. Gonzalez would lose about half of his advantage over Dunkovic, which is about 20 points at the moment. He would gain about 10, but he would gain on Benelid, so I think that would mean the second place would change hands. Dunkovic would get to second in the championship ahead of Benelid. Whether he's third or fourth, actually, I think that would be the case. Maybe not, actually. I don't know. I'm doing maths on the fly here, but Gonzalez has had a comfortable and consistent season, I think it is the word, really, Ron. Round 6 was his definite low point at Watkins Glen, but other than that, I mean, very, very consistent, very rarely finishing anywhere too high or too low, really. This has exactly been the kind of region he's been finishing all season.
Yeah, Gonzalez has put in a good one up to this point here in the 2025 Radical Americas Championship. With only 2 rounds left to go after this one, he doesn't really need to throw absolute caution to the wind. Frankly, that would probably hurt him at the end of the day. He just needs to get good results like this. He doesn't need to shoot for the stars, get an overall race win as an AM competitor. He just needs to be on that AM podium, get some good results, be right around the region of the leader. In this case, Dunkovic and Gonzalez finishing in P7 and P8 overall. That'd be a pretty good result for the both of them. Of course, Dunkovic gonna be very happy. That would actually be win number 3 for him this season in the AM category if he can get this spot and hold on to it between now and the checkered flag in about 26 minutes time. He would actually be able to tie Jose Gonzalez in terms of wins in that category, interestingly enough. Dunkovic was a bit of a late addition, though, to this season, so not really talking about him too much in reference to the AM category championship. However, he has been rather impressive. Got a win in the 4th round of the championship in Montreal, and was able to grab another win at Sebring, so we'll have to keep eyes on these rather twisty North American road courses, because not only has he been good in the other 2 ones that we've had up to this point. You think of Mosport, it's twisty, it's in North America. Belle Isle, it's twisty, it's in North America. Mid-Ohio, you guessed it, twisty in North America. So we may have to consider Jared Dunkovic potentially being a dark horse to maybe challenge for that championship if he has lightning striking the bottle.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's worth distinguishing Belle Isle, I think, from these two, actually, because of the street track nature of that circuit. Although you're right that, you know, it's a twisty circuit for all of these final 3. You know, Belle Isle is, I think, going to be even different again compared to the other 2 because of just how difficult that is. But maybe the race itself won't reflect that. We'll have to wait and find out, of course, when we're back again on October 12th. It's 3 weeks' time before we are there for the penultimate round of the series. Vieira keeps Butterford behind him again. Robert Neville's lost a couple of places on this last couple of laps, by the way, to Diego Zuccarelli and Joel Jacklin as well. If there's any incident there, we'll show you a replay of it, but dropping a lap down there. Doesn't have any obvious signs of damage at the moment, but is a lap down. Then again, you don't have to lose too much time to actually go a lap down here. It is not a long circuit.
I think this may end up being the shortest of the other tracks that we've been up to this point. It's rather short in terms of length. It's rather quick in terms of the speed, as that's a quick off-track moment for Robert Neville. Yet again, a driver getting caught out by the curb, heading off through turn number 5. I raised it earlier on, talking about the curbs and their relationship with cars in these SR10s. Any sort of undulation in the road can upset you, whether you're in a braking zone, whether you're trying to get the power down, whether or not that steering wheel is even just turned to the left or the right ever so faintly. That can really hurt you in these cars, as we see a little bit of lap traffic beginning to affect this battle up at the front, as that's a driver making the call to come down pit lane nearly. I thought that was a driver coming into the pits. That was trying to think of who that was. I believe that was that Joel Jacklin? I think that was.
Yeah. Oh, went off. Right in front of Rhinodo. That is Zuccarelli. The last of the pro drivers finding himself into the barriers there, and that's going to be damage, I'm afraid, for Diego Zuccarelli. He's not had a very good season. He's certainly not had a very good race here today. And over the top at turn 2, he just decides that pulling off the side of the circuit is the best thing to do. This will be his worst result of any race he's attended this season. He's actually missed 4 of the 7 races so far, but he's still in the top 7, such as the numbers we've had this season in the pros. Let's see how it happened, starting all the way back at the final sector.
I think that car was still driving a little bit evil, as you can see, no worries through there. You can see your race leader of Ryan Odo and your P2 runner of Aiden Young right there behind. Hit the curb on the exit, lost it out of the turn. Big whack into that inside wall squarely on that front left wheel. Tries to get back up and rolling and trundles his way down into this section here. Holy cow.
It's an awkward place when you're going over the rise there, over the top of the hill, trying to angle yourself because you really can't see where you're going, looking for the apex there of turn number 2. And yeah, it's very much a close moment. Thankfully not seen too many of them. Zuccarelli's already had a speeding penalty tonight, don't forget, and now he's about to have quite a long repair as well, drop to the very back of the field. It might even be the end of his day. Hopefully he continues on, but as I say, it'll be his worst point scoring finish, discounting of course those DNSs he's had, but he does need some points here and need to be here for these final few rounds if he wants to enter into the World Finals. Top 7 unfortunately in the pros in the Americas Championship, not too difficult to get into this season because of the numbers we've had. I mean, we've only got 7 here today, for example, and they're all going to be there in that top 7. And that's only going to be more confirmed tonight, although less so with Zuccarelli, to be fair. 21 minutes to go, and Butterford just gives a bit of a push to Vieira, making his intentions very, very clear indeed.
Yeah, and as we get closer and closer to the end of this race, closer and closer to the final third, as that right there was Graham Sanders. You can see that was the car Diego Zuccarelli stopped on the side of the road. That's Lucas Vieira making the call to come down pit lane, and he's joined by his teammates championship rival of Aiden Young. Fascinating to see that despite probably saving a lot of gas throughout that stint, Young comes into the pits before Odo. This is probably going to be a super short stop from Young. Let's just wait and see.
Let's see, the seconds will tick by. 13 seconds for Aiden Young, and we'll mark that against Ryan Odo in a moment. There goes a little bit of lap traffic just up in front of him as well right now. In fact, one of them is Jose Gonzalez, who will be for position. He'll hope that those two don't play too much of a role, but with 20 minutes to go, Ryan Odo might decide to stretch this stint a little bit further, use the lower fuel, and he'll see how far he can get ahead of Aiden Young before he has to make his final stop, or maybe he's going to respond straight away.
Yeah, so with that pit stop, oh man, that could have ended in disaster with himself and Gregory Castillo as they headed their way through turn number 4. Young maybe getting caught out by that a teeny tiny bit. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled on that number 15 car of Ryan Odo. How's it going to work for him strategy-wise? Will he just respond and kind of make the call to come down pit lane right about now? Or is he going to stay out for a couple laps, try and throw something at the wall to see what can stick when it comes to the strategy? I mentioned this in the like right before we got the race up and rolling, with how short of a track this is. You could probably throw a whole lot of different things at the wall when it comes to strategy compared to we'll just say the opening round of this season. Definitely an outlier in this case, but really puts on full display the Nordschleife round, for instance. Everybody came into the pits on pretty much the exact same lap because, you know, that track is 50 quintillion miles long, so you can't really do too much there. Here, on the other hand, the laps are short. You're running a whole lot of laps. It's probably the shortest lap from the entirety of the season here for the Radical Americas Championship, so you can do some varied strategies. You could probably have we'll just throw a number out there. You can probably have about 5 to 6 laps being the difference in terms of what these racers are doing strategy-wise and when they come in.
Now, Gonzalez can't quite decide whether he wants to get out the way or not, but this is an important lap for Aiden Young because the leader, Ryan Odo, is into pit lane. 18 minutes to go here at Mosport in the Radical SimRacing Americas Championship. Young is not going to be allowed back on the racing line before turning either. So Gonzalez racing him here for a position which, of course, it is for a position at the moment, and he's well within his rights to do so. Through the S's they go now, and he's already going, Rhinodo. 13 seconds as well, but he's spent those couple of laps on lower fuel out front. It was already ahead by about a second as well, and the gap now is going to be about 3 seconds. Rhinodo, with just less than 18 minutes to go, can see a race win up the road. He's just got to close this one out now for the final quarter of this race.
Yeah, now we gotta wonder, how is the fuel situation for these two? Is Aiden Young good to just push that car all the way up to the end? Does Rhinodo maybe have to do a little bit of fuel saving? We have seen experience. It helps out when it comes to the strategy. We even talk about the driver we have on screen right now, Aiden Young. In the opening round of this season at the Nordschleife, he was running strong in a firm podium spot. Wasn't able to get a good result out of that because of the fact that he came in for tires and fuel. So didn't just come in for fuel only, and because of that, he spent so much longer down in the pits than he needed to. It hurt him badly. But even when it comes to veterans of this series, when it comes to somebody like me who's coming up to completing his second season covering this Radical America's Championship, the strategy, you can make a small little mistake and it can truly be the end of you, basically. So if Aiden Young and Rhinodo feel 100% confident in their strategy, yeah, we may see them finish the way they are right now. But if Rhinodo maybe underfueled that car a little bit just to make sure he had the track position advantage at the end of this race, he may be in for a world of hurt as Jean Beaudefort. Oh no!
And it's another big save from John Beaudefort. He has put in some saves here today, and the lapped cars meantime continue their fight. Beaudefort's gap over Vieira dissipates completely, and he'll flash the lights rather angrily at Gregory Castillo, it is, in the grey and orange, who has rather got in his way here. Didn't see him coming on the exit of the pit lane. Beaudefort then entered with more speed and very nearly went for a big spin there.
Oh, and yeah, Gregory Castillo, the lapped car in the midst of all that. It was Castillo and Zuccarelli involved in their own battle as that was Beaudefort coming out of the pits and getting just put straight into that hornet's nest as he came out of pit lane. That was a very odd series of events. Castillo nearly ended up taking Zuccarelli out of the race. I saw a little bit of swerving going on there. Not sure exactly what the deal is with that number 12 car compared to the 26. But either way, John Beaudefort, despite the fact his tires have more than likely been turned into rectangles as a result of that huge slide and lockup through turn number 2 just one lap ago, he's still out there on the racetrack with a somewhat clean car. Has lost out on some time, but it could have been a heck of a lot worse.
Certainly could have been. No small crashes around here really at Mosport. Don't forget this is the an older scan of Mosport. So we have a look at Gregory Castillo there, now up to 16th because Graham Sanders' very long pit stop that's still going on at the moment. But yeah, it's a scan of Mosport that has a lot less runoff on than it does these days, especially on the exit of turn 2 where Beaudefort just had that problem, Clayton Corner. So it's something to very much keep an eye on. But there is Castillo. Kind of thanks to everyone who sends in their own view of what's going on their screen while we're broadcasting these races. Always great to see as Aiden Young is being closed on by Obado Diaz. I've got to say, it's been a great race from Diaz, perhaps one of his best in 2025, and if he can chase down and pass Aiden Young, it would just underline that, certainly.
This would be a standout performance from this season for him, and there's still plenty of opportunity to make it work with 14 minutes left to go on the clock here. As you mentioned that, though, Ewan, talking about the age of this scan on iRacing, I looked it up because I was curious. There's no official date listed out in terms of when the track was scanned, and I will say, and this is honest, folks, because I'm doing this show. I can't really 100% do full research onto this, so I'm going based off what the Google AI response feature did. So this may be potentially wrong, as it is more often than not, as Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Oh, as here we go. Ubaldo Diaz gonna jump in front of Aiden Young there with a move down to turn number 8. Slick stuff. Was just gonna say this track has been a part of iRacing since 2013. Ever since then, this track has undergone many alterations and modifications, but the track layout is still the same. And Diaz utilizing that final few couple of corners to get his way up into P2.
Well, that's a very good overtake indeed. And if there were longer left in this race, you'd start to speculate whether he might be able to do something about Ryan Odo, but 13 minutes and 3.5 seconds, I think, is too tall of an ask for Ubaldo Diaz. But I don't know if you'll agree, I think this is Ubaldo Diaz's best race this season. I know he's won a race, and of course that possibly has to take precedence at Road America, but you know, from what I remember in that race, it was quite chaotic. There was a lot going on. This has been a race where he's beat all but one drivers absolutely fair and square, you know, with the exception of Graham Sanders and Diego Zuccarelli in the pro class, who, especially in Zuccarelli's case, were never going to be challenging anyway for the race seat. I think Diaz has beaten more pro drivers on pure merit here tonight, almost than what he did in at the Nordschleife in week 1, or indeed at Road America in the week he won here. This is, for me, one of his most impressive, maybe even the most impressive drive he's done this season.
Yeah, I think you're right on the nose, Ewan. You brought it up, his race win earlier on this championship, round number 2 at Road America, all the way back in March when he was able to get the job done for his first and so far only race win of this 2025 campaign. That race was rather hectic. I think Ryan Odo and Aiden Young both had their fair share of falling anvils come down on their heads throughout that event. It was a pretty hectic run in that race, but Diaz here tonight at Mosport, he's put in a good drive from the drop of the green through to the fall of the checkered. Still has about 11.5 minutes to seal the deal, but if he can hold on to a P2 spot, I don't think he would mind that one bit. And slowly but surely making his way up through the field, and maybe even going to be in contention for a race win in the final 2 rounds of this championship. There's J.R. Gregory making the call to come down pit lane. The Flying Line Racing car, Flying Line Racing, looking to do well in that AM Teams Championship. I'm not sure how it's all going to work out for them, as there was a bit of a cushion at in that AM Teams Championship heading off into this race, but JR still looking to do all right as he comes out of the pits right in line with his teammate. Beautiful stuff there.
Yeah, the only problem being, of course, they are a lap apart, the Flying Line Racing team drivers, which is not ideal. Benlid and Ohion will take points away from them, I think. Ohion's 1 point in front of Kresic, but Benlid is further ahead of J.L. Gregory, so I think they'll gain some very minor points there, but yeah, it's a nice photo opportunity. I was surprised to J.L. Gregory, actually, but I'd forgotten that he hadn't actually made his final stop yet, so my surprise quickly dissipated, as Gregory now will have to a fight to hold on to a top 5 position here, and with his teammate out in front, he's not going to be screaming at that car to see blue flags. In fact, he's going to be screaming at his teammate to stay in front of me, please, and keep giving me slipstream, because that is going to make Gregory's job a lot easier if he's going to hold on to that 5th place ahead of Robert Never, which he'll hope to do so.
And you know, upon you saying that, Ewan, this was a thought that just popped across my head. Looking at the final 2 tracks that we'll be visiting after this race here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park tonight, Belle Isle and Mid-Ohio, not really draft-heavy tracks. I mean, Belle Isle makes Sebring look like a Formula 1 Grade 1 certified racetrack that just opened. It is so incredibly bumpy there. I remember back when that was still part of the IndyCar calendar, especially back in the day when they used to run 2 races. It was a doubleheader every single weekend, the week after the Indy 500. And they would always talk about how the drivers would have blisters on their hands leaving that race weekend at Belle Isle. That is a super bumpy racetrack. That's part of the reason why it, unfortunately, the street circuit is no longer in use. The people who own because that is technically a park that they run through, couldn't really justify paving the roads around there just for a race to still be held there, so they just moved it down to the downtown of Detroit, and not really a fan of that racetrack, if I'm being completely honest. But Belle Isle, that is a super, super bumpy track. It has some flat out blasts, but it is by no means a drafter. And as much as Mid Ohio has a massively long back straightaway in the other runoff into China Beach, probably going to get utilized as racers go for sends on each other, especially towards the end of that race for the season finale in early November. Not really a draft heavy racetrack, that. So, really, if you look at the drafters, I think we've pretty much had all of the draft races now firmly in our rearview mirror.
I didn't realise that Belle Isle had been fully extinguished as a circuit, actually, for good. I know that it had been not used to... Oh, as Castillo goes wide and off. Oh, dear. This is the problem with this, or indeed the benefit, I suppose, depends on which way you look at it, of the grass on the outside lining turn 2 instead of the tarmac. Mistakes are very much punished, and Castillo has been punished there for his error. Goes straight off into the tyre wall. Under the new iRacing grass model, it's not quite as certain that you'll hit the wall, but Castillo hit the wall pretty hard there, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not green ice anymore, but it is still... I mean, it's not asphalt, it's not concrete, it's not any sort of paved surface. That certainly isn't a gravel trap, and you can tell that impact with the tire barriers was rather rough. Castillo, the front clip is still teetering on that race car, and the front right tire completely snapped off. It's not spinning at all, so Castillo going to be one of the latest retirees from this race. Graham Sanders had his own bit of drama. He's been down in the pits for about 15,000 years up to this point. He's been in there for quite some time, so he's out of this race. Castillo going to come in to try and repair that car. He's had his fair share of drama up to this point. I'm not sure if he will have the time to rejoin this race. These drivers have one fast repair allotted to them, one fast repair and one fast repair only, and not sure if he will be able to rejoin this race, because with the drama he had earlier on, I think he may have potentially used that fast repair already.
Yeah, and if he has, then that will be that. It does look indeed like Graham Sanders also is out of the race. So as you say, we might have 2 retirements down there, but good to get so many so far through this race. We're in the very dying stages now. So I'll say good to get them all through. It's going to give Flying Line Racing some more points, actually, as well, I suppose it moves Ohion up as well, doesn't it, with Castillo dropping through the field. But anyway, they have now got no pressure behind them from Robert Neville anymore, who seems to have dropped away, and into the pit lane actually comes Kresic. So he'll hope that Zuccarelli is not too close, because otherwise there'll be a position lost there and some more point slots for Flying Line Racing on a day where they're already going to lose some points in the Teams Championship. In the Pro Teams Championship, by the way, Solpec once again are going to be gaining... they're going to be pegged back actually this time round. They lost a lot to Team ERC last time with Odo's disconnection and Vieira's non-attendance, but Butterfield's only just in front of Vieira, and with Sanders such a long way back for Solpec, they're going to just bring some of that gap back again. Unfortunately, 130 points is not a realistic amount to catch, I don't think, in 3 rounds, but this will be a good start for Team ERC.
Yeah, you know, it may not be a successful late season rally. I'm not sure if they will be able to get it done unless some sort of miracle befalls them and some falling anvils come down on Solpec. But either way, if they could just claw up that gap and say, hey, look, we gave it the old college try at the end of the season, that would be what matters. So I think that could be what they're aiming for. Certainly putting a lot of their eggs into the basket to help Ryan Odo try and get the championship. And this will be a bit of a swing in momentum. You look at some of the past few weeks, they've gone back-to-back in terms of the wins. Ryan Odo rounded off what really felt like the first part of the season. It felt like the first half, even though it was technically in the second half of the championship. Luis Diaz runs wide through turn number 1. It was able to get the win at Watkins Glen. That race was all the way back in June. We had a bit of a summer break here in the Radical Americas Championship. Odo was able to hit that break running, though, with that win in the race leading up to it. Then at Sebring was looking good for him, and then that unfortunate computer mishap took him out of contention, and Aiden Young was able to get the job done. Odo, though, he wants to have a better second half to the season than he did in the first. You think of the first half of the season for Odo, got the season kicked off in the best way imaginable with a win at the Nordschleife, but after that he ran into bit of bad luck. I think Road America, he had a disconnect. Road Atlanta, I think he got involved in an incident with himself and Diaz. Montreal, I think he just came oh so close, but not close enough to beat Aiden Young. And Interlagos was a bit of an oddity with the only time he's shown up in this series. Rasim Fazui getting the win in that race. Hasn't returned since. Just showed up there and say, hey, look, I'm here to have some fun. It's a one-off. I figured, hey, you know what? I've got the night off. Why not? So outside of that one outlier for Interlagos, it's a bit of a feast or famine season for Ryan Odo, frankly. He's either been contending for the podium and running very good, or the falling anvils have come out full force.
The closest gap out there on the circuit at the moment between Bertefur and Vieira would be a big game for ERC in that case if both of their drivers could beat both of Solpex, but it would only be a small inroad. Just less than 3 minutes to go. Should be 3 laps actually at the line, such as the short nature of the circuit, unless I'm mistaken. Unfortunately, Diaz is going to run out of time, and I know that some of you in YouTube chat have been paying your compliments to Diaz here this evening. We certainly have been as well in commentary. It's been a wonderful drive from him. Aiden Young is a couple of seconds behind now, 6 seconds off the lead or something like that off of Ryan Odo, and nearly 4 seconds off of Diaz now. I mean, someone in YouTube suggesting or speculating whether there might even be something wrong with Aiden's car. You know, it just looked like one of those days where you sort of start to wonder what's actually going on for Aiden Young at the moment. That's actually, we might actually be just getting 2 laps to go there, not 3. Because, you know, this is a bit unlike him really, to be so roundly beaten by Odo and Diaz. It's not even really been very close, so you do start to wonder about things like that, but on some days you are just outclassed, and that might be the case here.
I will say, though, it's not total doom and gloom for Aiden Young. I like how we're talking about this like, oh, this is a little bit odd. It's an off day for Aiden Young as he's on track to finish on the podium still. But yeah, it's a good point that he raised there, Ewan. He's in the earlier stages of this race, he looked pretty all right. I wonder if he's had to do a little bit of fuel saving as we've gone to the end of this race, because looking at some of the lap times he's said, he hasn't really been on his A game, so to speak. I'll actually quickly look through as we're very much so getting to the end of this race with a white flag going to be in the air soon. But I do want to touch on some of the lap times that Aiden Young has set up to this point. Did set his best lap of the race not too long after his pit stop on lap 41, was able to set a 1:11.8, but outside of that, it's been firmly in the 1:12s for him. I don't think he's really been able to capitalize on the end of this race, hasn't really been able to show that same speed that we saw in previous races or even earlier on tonight.
The white flag was not waving there, by the way, so I don't believe this will be the last lap unless there's a surprise, but let's hope everybody's got enough fuel on board, because it's very, very close in terms of one lap to the other, and that's when you do see people under fueling and having to make a splash and dash towards the end here. So let's hope that nobody has got the misfortune of that. As Odo comes out of Moss corner down the pit straight again. Already this season, Ryan Odo has taken 2 victories. First one coming in the first round of the season at the Nordschleife, and he had to wait a long time between drinks. It was Watkins Glen at the end of June before he won again. And it's been quite a long time since then as well. Nearly 3 months since his last victory. In fact, 3-month wait, a 3-month gap in both of his victories so far. It looks like that's going to continue on. White flag. The seconds actually did tick to 0, but it is going to be white flag this time. Butterford catches up and defends. Vieira catches up to Butterford, and Butterford defends. He's got one more lap. He would have been hoping that was the checker flag, because he's been losing time now to the Team ERC driver, who will desperately want 4th place before the finish.
And with that contention coming to the end of this race, figuring out when the white flag was going to be in the air or not, you have to wonder about the fuel situation. These racers tend to run it a little bit fast and loose, and maybe a bit on the danger zone for how much fuel they have at the end of this race. Will anybody run out on this last lap? We'll just have to find out. Ryan Odo on track for that win. Ubaldo Diaz was closing the gap, but it hasn't really been able to materialize in Aiden Young, running effectively in no man's land as it stands currently. But a little bit odd at the end of this race. I don't think anybody's going to get caught out too badly from the fuel number. I'm not seeing anybody dropping back.
Ronaldo, meantime, he's going to come through the final corners, and he is going to win for the third time in 2025 in the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship. He crosses the line here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park to win by 3 seconds in front of Alberto Diaz. A brilliant performance from Odo, who overcame Aidan Young in the first couple of stints, distanced him in terms of slipstream, and held off a late charge from Diaz, whose gap came down to as low as 2 seconds in the final 5 minutes there. But it will be Young who keeps the championship lead, although Odo dents that significantly tonight. Jarrett Tunkovic gets a bit closer to the AM Championship lead, although Jose Gonzalez with second will continue to lead that championship. Jarrett Tunkovic will win in the AM class tonight, and that is a brilliant performance from him. It's 2 on the bounce for Tunkovic, who's coming into form at the right time of the year. But Jose Gonzalez, whose championship lead is mostly untouched, as he beats John Benlid and only finishes 1 point behind the AM winner, Jarrett Tunkovic.
I gotta say that AM category has been fascinating, and it will be fascinating throughout the end of this season to see who's going to get the job done. But Jose Gonzalez certainly doing himself a lot of favors. It's a return to victory lane for him in the AM category. Pretty wild to think about this, Ewan. The last time that we saw Jose Gonzalez win one of these Radical Americas Championship races in that AM category was all the way back at the Interlagos round, which, for context, folks, was all the way back on June the 8th. Pretty much went the entirety of the summer without seeing him win in the AM category. It still continues on with Tunkovic getting the job done, but Gonzalez still putting in those good results.
And that's exactly what it's all about. Ryan Odo, though, is a winner here tonight for the third time this season after a whopping 50 laps. 3 seconds in front of Alberto Diaz, who had good pace tonight, and Aidan Young, who was a little bit unlike himself. John Butterfur and Lucas Vieira rounded out the top 5, with Jarrett Tunkovic winning the AM class, and Jose Gonzalez and John Benlid would join them on the podium. James Franznik finished in 9th place, with J.R. Gregory ending up 1 lap down. It was Robert Neville next, head of Joel Jacklin. Diego Zuccarelli got past Cedric Ohion towards the end net. Charles Krasic just 1 point behind there, or 1 position behind there rather. Flying Line Racing losing points to Lima Racing in the AM Championship battle therefore. Gregory Castillo finishes 16th, but retired 9 laps out. Graham Sanders retired just inside the final third of that race. And Saltpet Precision Racing will end up losing some points here tonight in the team's championship as well. Hopefully we'll be able to chat to some of the runners and riders from that race in a moment. And indeed, just as I say that, Jarrett Tunkovic puts himself in the waiting room. So let's have a chat with our AM winner tonight. Jarrett, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on an AM victory here tonight in the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship. It's 2 on the bounce for you now. How does this run in the autumn compare? As you won 4 weeks ago at Sebring, now at Mosport as well. How do those 2 wins compare?
Hey, Ewan, thanks for broadcast tonight, guys. And yeah, no, this one was definitely probably one of my top favorites. I freaking love Mosport, and it's just such a fun track to just try to get down and nail down, trying to make sure you're staying over the bumps right, make sure that you're nice and smooth throughout the entire race. The big thing too tonight definitely was tires. I mean, that's part of the reason why my times came down in the last part of the race, was just because I was able to manage the tires a bit better, and I feel like that was definitely a big difference maker. But yeah, we're going into the fall now with some really good momentum, and we're really excited to see what the rest of the season turns out to be, like last 2 races.
How much do these last 2 races matter in terms of the regular season championship? Because while you're not secure of a spot in the World Finals yet, you do well to miss out now, given the points you've accumulated. And, you know, you're not that far away from winning the regular season. You're not in the lead by any means, but you're there or thereabouts with Benlid and Gonzalez. How much does that matter in the final 2 rounds? How hard are you going to be going for that regular season title before we get to the World Finals in November?
Hey, listen, the regular season, it doesn't matter whether it's the regular season or the off season or the playoffs, whatever you want to call it. We're just going to keep trying to chip away at that lead for the championship. It's going to be tight, at least coming down to the last 2 rounds, but you know, we're just going to keep charging and trying to make sure that we make the best of it and what we can do with each weekend in and out. But yeah, the really excited to see what the World Finals are going to hold for us, and we're going to try to make sure we secure our seat before that. But besides that, though, yeah, really just really happy and really happy with the performance that I've developed over the past couple of races and stuff. Definitely running some of the officials has been a good time, and definitely some good training.
And you're not quite mathematically secure, as I say, but you've taken a big step forward tonight. So congratulations on an AM-class victory, Jarrett, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Yeah, of course. Thanks again, guys, for the broadcast, and thanks again for the DCG boys. Freaking rocking the world. So appreciate it, guys. You have a good night.
Thanks so much. That's Jarrett Dunkovic chatting to us at the end here tonight from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. He's our AM winner. Now time to bring in the pro and overall winner at Ryan Odo tonight from Mosport. Ryan, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Let's go back to the start of the race, first of all. It felt in the first 15-20 minutes, I've got to say, like that race between yourself and Ed Young was going to be very, very similar to Sebring, only without, hopefully, the disconnection and technical problem for yourself. Did you have that feeling as well, or did you always have the plan and indeed the belief that you'd be able to manoeuvre yourself at a nice lead before the end of the race?
Oh no, I thought with the pace that Aiden had, I thought that he was going to beat me, no doubt. He was absolutely flying, no mistakes. I'm pretty sure he also got a 0x race as well. So I had thought it was just going to be a him and I race, and maybe throw in Ubaldo or John if they were to catch up. Yeah.
In terms of, I asked the same thing to Dunkovic, but in terms of the regular season championship, how hard are you going to be going for that now, given the points you've gained tonight? You started the day 26 behind. You'll be, I think, around 10 behind, maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 behind. How hard are you going to be going for that towards the end of this season?
I think I'm just going to be going the same pushing as I was before. Aiden's unbelievably fast. I may even have to clock in a couple extra hours to be able to beat him. He is an incredible driver. I mean, yeah, I'm probably going to have to push extra hard the more I think about it.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in the final two rounds, of course, Ryan. But thanks for chatting to us at the end tonight, and congrats on winning tonight in Mosport.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks very much, Ryan Odo, the winner tonight from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in the pro class. Aiden Young finished in third place tonight and also can join us now. Aiden, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Your third place here tonight, and indeed the pace, especially in the last 10 minutes or so, where you were losing a bit of time to Diaz and Odo, it's caused some people in our chat to wonder whether you even had damage or whether something was going on for yourself there. What was causing you to see that gap balloon towards the end there and see the gap go out as you finished in third place tonight?
Yeah, I screwed up on my fuel strategy. It's unfortunate. I underfueled the car by 3 liters, so yep, is what it is. It's racing.
Must be a reason. We knew there must be a reason after we saw the first stage of this race. What does this do in terms of your feelings and thoughts on the championship going forward now? You were 26 points ahead of Odo going into today. I think your gap will be between 10 and 15 points now. How attainable is it that you can hold on to that in the final 2 races of the regular season?
Well, I think we have Detroit next. I don't know if I'm correct about that, but if we do, I'll just going to Detroit. Detroit's one of my favorite street circuits. I've always been quite good around there, especially in a GT4 car and Formula cars. So this isn't really too necessarily different than a F4 car. It's just a little bit more understeery, but it's a lot of fun to drive. So, we'll go into Detroit. I'll put in the practice, and I'll just try and get the biggest gap I can and try and come home with another win, because this one does not feel good. I'm happy for Ryan, but I want that championship now that I know I can get it. And losing like this, it feels pretty bad.
Well, I can certainly understand, but you're having a good season when a third place feels pretty bad. Congratulations on a podium tonight, Ed, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks very much. That is Aiden Young. A little bit deflated tonight, but as I say, third place on a bad day is certainly a good season. A good race run here at Mosport, certainly quietened down towards the finish, but a number of good performances to highlight throughout. Obodo Diaz, one of them in second. Unfortunately, doesn't look like we'll be able to chat to him tonight. Ryan Odo, of course, who won the race. Jack Dunkovic in the AM class winning as well. Lots of performances to admire here, and two championships in the regular season anyway that are very close going into the final 2 races of the season.
Yeah, and it was a night that once again proves the level of competition here in the Radical Americas Championship. We had the 2 winners in both of our classes equal the number of wins their main championship rivals have. Jared Dunkovich getting his 3rd, tying Jose Gonzalez's tally, and Ryan Odo getting his 3rd, tying Aiden Young's tally. Super competitive racing, super fun racing action as well. Then a little bit broken up as we've gone into the second half of this Radical Americas Championship here in 2025, but with only 2 races left to go between now and the start of November. We've got some good stuff ahead here in the Radical Americas Championship for 2025.
And there is our venue for the next one. It's Detroit Belle Isle from 8:30 Eastern Time. Make sure you join us again 3 weeks today when we'll be racing again for the penultimate round of the Americas Championship. Between now and then, every Friday, we've got the 2100 GMT broadcasted split races coming to you, of course. That starts from 5 p.m. Eastern Time, or indeed 9 o'clock GMT/UTC. So make sure you join us for that on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing YouTube channel, as well as the next round of the European Championship, which is the week before this race from Detroit Belle Isle. That's at Imola, which takes place, what is it, about 8 p.m. UK time, so what is that, about 3 p.m. Eastern. If you want to have a check that one out on a Sunday as well. Very much enjoy having you along for that one as well. For now though, this has been RaceSpotTV's coverage of the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It's Ryan Odo and Jared Dunkovich, our 2 class winners tonight, as we head for the final 2 races of